Greetings there. It's been about 3 weeks since I last did a video. I didn't expect to go that long without making one. Quite a few things happened in those 3 weeks. It's been a pretty eventful 3 weeks. It's been an eventful year, to be honest with you. And just for the record, I'm okay. It's been tough. I mean, there's been some emotional blows over the last year and really over the last 3 weeks that's kind of made it where I didn't really feel like making any videos. But I want to talk about that. I want to talk about, mental health and the escapism that is sports. I know I made sports themed videos. Ventured into politics. God help me after the election for a little bit, and just wanted to kind of talk about how sports can kind of for a long time helped me with some mental health issues, and how the adding the politics to it, and a lot of the issues going on there. You kind of with the social media, and there's not the mystique around the athletes. You know who they are, and it's not really something you want to know about. Kind of how it's affected me. So I wanted to go over that. Like I said, I'm fine. I'm not nothing. Horrible's happened. Thank the good Lord, I've never in my life been had any thoughts or plans or anything like that of ending my own life. Unfortunately, a lot of people I know have, and some actually have gone so far as to actually do it, and that's heartbreaking. I feel like I have a lot more empathy for them now than I did a long time ago, because I understand that when your mind's not right, nothing's right, and there's not always a trigger for it. Sometimes people like to bring up past traumas. Well, I don't have any past traumas, at least from my childhood or anything like that. It's just the normal traumas that life brings. But like I said, luckily that's not been an issue. I've not been, beating myself up. I've not been drinking myself silly by any means. I've probably in the last 3 weeks, I've probably had 12 total beers, which is about my average, to be honest with you. Usually about once a week, I'll drink about 3 or 4 beers and just kind of fade back a little bit and relax, and then wake up the next morning feeling sick as I get older. So I'll probably have to stop that at some point. Um, but yeah, like I said, a lot's happened, and I just want to kind of go over that and just talk about how, like I said, as fortunate as I am, a lot of people aren't as fortunate as far as, their brain's concerned, the way their brain processes stuff. And as you can tell, I'm trying to grow my beard back. I enjoyed my time with just the mustache. I'll probably have that again, probably especially over the summer when it gets hot. But yeah, I mean, for the next few months, I just want to kind of, grow a normal beard back like I always had. And I don't really have any plans. I don't think the stuff out really ahead of time. I did the mustache on a whim, liked it, kept it for quite a while, and now ready to kind of try something else. And who knows? Maybe I'll go back. Maybe I won't. And that's the thing, though. I've never really had a. I don't plan a lot of stuff out. This video or this channel that I do, these videos I do, there's really no mission statement other than it's therapy for me. Just getting my thoughts out there. And sports for me, because I've kept up with that my whole life and really cared about it for a long, long time, cared deeply about it. And so I talk about the Indiana Fever so much. They've got me caring in a way for them that I used to care about a lot of stuff and just haven't anymore. Um, I've never been one that's been able to really write a journal, just sitting down and writing, even typing it out. Just it never worked, because you always have that backspace button. You're like, oh, I wrote this. That didn't sound good. I didn't like the way that. I don't like the way that looks. So you can kind of go back, and it's just too tempting. Pencils having erasers. You can always just cross out anything if you're using a pen. These video formats. Even though I can just, if I don't like what I'm saying, I can stop and start over, which I've done a couple times. But it's very raw and kind of unfiltered. Now it's not for everybody. Obviously, there's no video editing. It's just me talking into a phone. There's no script. There's just an idea of what I want to talk about. Occasionally, I'll take notes. There's none this time. Just want to kind of talk about where I'm at, and how sports has helped me, and how sometimes it's hurt me, and how you have to stay vigilant about that, and just kind of give my story. And if it can help other people, um, that's a great thing. That would be amazing for me. So um, I have a pretty severe anxiety disorder. At one point, it's to the point of agoraphobia. I went to college straight out of high school in the fall of 2002, and college was a nightmare for me. That was my first time away from home. I had kind of a sheltered upbringing, which I mean, I don't blame my parents for at all. Especially, mom, she had a very traumatic childhood, and she wanted to make sure I didn't have to go through that, and she did a great job. I don't have any childhood traumas to look back on, other than getting made fun of and bullied in school. But I mean, that happens. Kids are kids. It's awful. Um, but I feel like that actually made me stronger. Made me realize, okay, you're not normal. You're not that person, so you just have to be who you are and embrace it. And I feel like, as much as I cried at the time and, didn't, I really had a tough time with the rejection more of it than the actual bullying. It straightened me into who I am. Um, I'm pretty sure I have Asperger's. I never went and got an official diagnosis because I didn't want an official diagnosis. All my life I was just called weird. And then sometime in the early 2010s, I think it was, or maybe before that, this term Asperger's came about, and I kind of looked at it and I'm like, wow, that's me. But now it's just, I think they did away with that term, and it's just all, you're on the spectrum. You have autism, which that's such a broad scope. It's just basically like saying, if you're in a physical terms, it's like saying you're sick without any kind of specification. I mean, with diabetes, you can have type one, type two, borderline diabetes, gestational diabetes for pregnant women, things like that, and why they can't, kind of classify those levels of autism and understand that I have it a lot better than a lot of people. And that's one of the things you're gonna hear. I do have it really good, and that's one of the things that's actually in some ways hurt me mentally, because I'm like, okay, why am I like this? What do I have to be anxious over? What do I have to be depressed over? And that bothered me for a long time. It actually hurt my path to recovery. But sometimes you have to realize, some people, they have those triggers. They have those childhood traumas, which I was very fortunate to avoid, because so many people have just heartbreaking stories to hear about things they had to go through as a child. I mean, almost every person I've ever dated and had any kind of relationship with, when they spoke about their childhood, even their teenage years, there's a lot of trauma, a lot of really heartbreaking trauma. Or one lady I dated, I mean, I just, it still haunts me to this day, just hearing her talk about it. She was she basically she was abused as like 4 or 5 years old by a stepfather that her mother was married to. They're living in Oklahoma and Texas and Kansas and places like that. And when they realized that, she got sent back to North Carolina, where I'm from. I didn't meet her till after she was an adult, and she got to live there, have some happy years. And her mother somehow went to the Oklahoma courts and got her back. And they sent her back to Oklahoma, where she just married a horrible human being. He was actually the son of the sheriff in Lawton County, Oklahoma. You can look it up. I think he's still the sheriff of Lawton County. He His son married this person's mother and abused her in every way you can abuse somebody, to the point of even basically taking syringes full of, I think, tap water, or they don't know what it was. He just stabbed them with it in their hands and injected in there. And that's how he got caught. She showed up to school with her hand twice as big. And like I said, it's just, that's on top of, physical and sexual abuse. It's just, it's heartbreaking. I never had that. So, for me, there wasn't that trigger you can trace it back to, which, again, like I said, I'm lucky for that. But it hurt me for a while, because I didn't know, okay, what's causing this? Why am I feeling this way? But, I wasn't really exposed to the world much growing up. Like I said, me and mom and dad, they're still together. Mom and dad met in '73, got married in 1979. They're still married. Just the three of us. I'm their only child. I was born 9 years into their marriage, and dad was 31, mom was 29, and I mean, I had a great childhood. I mean, they loved me. They always showed me that they loved me. We didn't have the most money in the world, but I had a lot more than they had. I can tell you that. They both grew up dirt poor. Mom had a traumatic childhood in addition to the poverty. She just wanted out and wanted to make sure that I didn't have to experience any of that. Dad grew up very poor too, but he was out in the woods in the deep South, and was able to entertain himself, to an extent, and kind of but he knew he wanted more than that rural, deep South. And nothing against it, but I mean, he wanted to actually have a career and try to make some actual money. And when I came along, he was in the process of trying to get into management, and that became a big priority for him to make sure that I had it better than he had it, that Mom had it, and they did. That was their goal, was to make sure that I had opportunities they never had, and I did. I got to go to college. I graduated college in 2006 after 4 years. Probably the experience was bad because that's when my anxiety and, quite honestly, agoraphobia just took over. I was having panic attacks all over the place throughout those whole 4 years. I didn't know what was going on. I just kept fighting through them, just kept moving forward which is not a good thing. Unfortunately, I needed to stop at some point and say, okay, I got a problem. And it didn't stop either. After college, I just kind of went back to live with my parents, went to my room, and didn't go out for quite a while, for about 2.5 years. And finally, in early 2009, Mom finally just said, okay, I'm hooked. I'm setting you up an appointment with a psychiatrist. And, I'm taking you there. And I was okay. By that point, I was like, yeah, just anything that'll help. And I got the help I needed. I got medicated to the point where I could go out, I could drive out. I went to community college, got my paramedics license, earned that in 2011 after clinicals, and again going out and about and being able to actually have an actual life. That meant a lot, and I've been working. I still got my paramedics license. I'm a nationally registered paramedic. I haven't worked on the truck on the ambulance since 2014, so it's been over 10 years. But just being able to go out and work is something I didn't think I'd be able to do. But mental health, there's a little bit of a stigma behind it, but I don't know if it's so much a stigma now. We don't talk about it very openly and honestly. And I always wondered why. And like I said, I know there's a stigma for a while. That stigma seems to have gone away, which is a good thing. But the problem now is I think it's just a lack of understanding. And I get that. I remember when I first started getting treated, this was, like I said, early 2009, shortly before and after I turned 25, in through there, having to talk and, try medications out and let her know how that went. And I remember after about the second or third time, and the psychiatrist is wonderful. I'd love to see her again, and her receptionist is wonderful as well. I remember asking the receptionist, I said, okay, just out of curiosity, how many of these am I going to have to go to? It's like, I want to be well then. How long till I'm well? But the way she put it, I think, says a lot. She said, we don't know. This is, your mental situation. We can't put this in a petri dish and know exactly where you're at. And that to me really hit home because that described it perfectly. Again, like I talked about diabetes. I don't envy diabetics at all. It's a tough disease, and like I said, my heart goes out to everybody who's there, and my admiration to people who are able to fight their way through it. But like I said with them, they can stick their finger, which although it hurts like hell, you can get an instant blood sugar reading right there. They can test your A1C, so they kind of know where you're at, what you need, where your body's at, and I know it's more complicated than that, but they can create a plan from there. There's no way of like measuring, your mental health other than what you tell them, and making sure that they understand what you're telling them, and making sure that they can go from there. And I was very lucky. It took me about 6 months of therapy to get my head in the right space and to get in the right medicine. And like I said, I was luckily since then I've been able to rejoin society. I'm able to drive, which is something I was scared to do for a long, long time. I still have trouble driving on the interstate pretty bad. Too many times I had panic attacks on the interstate and just kept driving. I figured I'd pass out and crash, and then finally I could get the help I needed, but I was just never one to ask for it. So a little too much, like I said, there's, I guess, the trauma. But, it was when I was an adult, and it was my fault for not, saying, look, something's wrong, I need help. And again, and the other thing, too, is the fear. I feared when I went in there, I'm like, what if they can't figure it out? What if they can't figure out what's going on? And I'm just like, we don't know. You're just going to have to be like this for the rest of your life. There's a lot of fear there. And even now, sometimes there's fear, like, am I going to, Because we never stop growing. Our minds never stop changing. Our chemical balance never stops changing. What if I ever get to the point where I can't do anything? I don't think it'll come to that. I mean, I don't think, but you just never know. But then sometimes life stressors get involved. As you probably know from my previous videos, I got married last year in May, and within 5 months we decided, or we didn't decide. She decided she didn't want to work on it anymore. She wanted to get her own place and then file for separation to eventually file for divorce, which is what we're going to do as soon as she ever gets out of here. I don't know what it's going to be. We started dating in early January of 2020, just before the pandemic hit, and we really fell in love. And things are really, really good. And that summer we had an argument, and she broke up with me. I should have known right then that that was an issue, because relationships, no matter how much you love somebody, they need work. You have to sit there and talk about them. And, she never wanted to talk about them. When I would finally bring stuff to her attention, she would just break down crying and melt down, and just she couldn't talk about it, and just talk about how hard it was and how she couldn't handle it. And so I really had to, instead of saying, look, this is something we need to work on, that's where I made my mistake. I just kind of withdrew emotionally, because I knew I couldn't let her know how I was feeling emotionally, because then she would get overwhelmed, and I should have known that was going to go nowhere. And we got engaged in late December, a little bit before Christmas in 2021. We were going to get married in October of 2022, but things really fell apart, at the start of 2022, and we were eventually called off. We didn't have anything set in stone, luckily. We just had a date in October. I can't remember the date now. But we called off the wedding, and what it was going to be in April of that year. And like I said, by September, we'd broken up. It was going to be our wedding night. I actually spent, I'm here in upstate South Carolina. I actually spent in Toccoa, Georgia, just across the state line, about 45 minutes away, with another person, because, we were broken up, and, we were both trying to see other people. So I spent what was going to be our wedding night with somebody else. So that didn't feel good looking back at it. I mean, it was a wonderful lady I was with, but I should have known better. So we broke up for almost a year. She went to she lives in a little town about 40 miles from here. Went to some basically Section 8 apartments there, in where she lived, and there's fleas. She had 3 kids, by the way, my stepkids, 2 8-year-old twins and a 9-year-old. When I first met them in 2020, the twins were 3 and the other one was 4. So I've kind of had a chance to watch them grow up to an extent. I didn't see them as babies, but they were, basically just out of diapers when I met them, and watching them grow into who they are now is actually pretty cool. But we got back together because she was about to lose the kids. Their apartment had fleas. They're biting the kids. She couldn't bring them over because they'd get bitten, and her ex-husband was not happy about it. Understandably, he's a real piece of trash, but at least he provides them stability. So I took her back. I decided, I love you. I did. I loved her, and we decided to make it work. That way, plus we bring the kids here on her week to have them, and we did that, and I eventually reproposed, and we got married in May of this year. But I should have known, things weren't so well. And like I said, that chips away at your mental health. You get married, you kind of feel like it's not right, and then within 5 months she's saying no. And she's still not willing to work on it or talk about it. And it's a marriage I really think really feel like we could have had a very happy life together. And that's tough. But then there's the fact of my job. So my job's been, as you probably could tell from my previous videos, has been wearing on me a lot. So I worked there for 7 years. I started January 2nd, 2018. Plasma. Grifols Plasma. On the medical staff under my paramedics license. Before I moved down here to the upstate, which was the day before that in 2018, I spent a little over 3 years before that working at CSL Plasma in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And it just became my job, I was a little bit tired of CSL at the time, but I could have worked there for a while, but I knew I was going to be moving down here, and I had an opportunity to join the place I had been working at for 7 years, and decided to go ahead and move down early to get a start on that. So for over 10 years, I worked on the medical staff at 2 different plasma centers, and like I said, it was just a job for me. I was happy to, spend the rest of my days doing that. And it was there was minimal stress until about a year ago, and like I said, it actually it did not hurt my mental health. It was actually good for it because I could, the time that I'd normally be stewing over my job after I got home, I just got to go home and kind of think about things and understand where I'm at. Did for over 10 years. I changed about a year ago because we got bought out by Grifols Plasma here in the place I was working at in Clemson, South Carolina, about 20 miles from where I live. And like I said, I mean, I had 6 amazing years there. But something about once I hit year 7, I thought, okay, maybe this is just a 7 year itch. Maybe I'm just getting burned out for plasma. But I started getting dinged for all these minor little things that I'd done before. But something about the Grifols corporate structure, they just beat you over the head for nothing or very little. We had to do anytime a donor, while donating plasma, had a medical event, you had to do a report called a donor adverse event. Well, I never had a problem with that. We used to have to write them out on paper. It was a pain. But for the last few years, we've been able to do it electronically, which is a lot easier. So I've never had issues writing out a DAE. But we had, supposedly if they throw up, we're supposed to automatically write out a DAE. Had a lady got called out there because she was sick and said she felt like she was going to throw up. She had her puke bag in her hand. She kind of dry heaved. Might have been a guy, whoever it was. I mean, I don't even remember now. It was I think about April of last year, and she just kind of dry heaved in there, and nothing came out. And of course, she had a mouthful of saliva by that point. She just kind of spit it in the bag. So to me, she did not vomit. Um, One of the floor staff went and told our manager, the person who hired me, who became a manager in 2020. After our first manager, who was not any good, got rightfully fired. Um, and like I said, next thing you know, I'm having to talk to corporate. I'm having to write all these things out, do all these interviews, go in their office every 10 seconds to talk about it so they can write reports about it. And I'm like, because the person on the floor said that they felt like there was some vomitus in there, which, not to get too graphic, but I didn't see any. I even looked. Maybe I missed it. If so, that's not something you beat somebody over the head for. That's a very, very minor issue. The person was able to finish their donation with no problems. So that was the start of it, and it just felt like from that point forward, I spent all my time there. I got another ding. Um, so basically, with doing the phlebotomy for plasma, there's a chance you might, their vein might blow and they might have an infiltration and cause a big bruise. So we had to determine, if the bruise was greater than or less than 2 by 2. If it was greater than 2 by 2, you had to write a DAE, which again I had no problem doing. Those are actually very easy. You don't have to do vitals or nothing. You just put down what happened and you're done in 5 minutes. Um, I looked at their arm and I looked at the actual bruised area. Now there were some faded areas there that was bruised or from a bruise, but it was not bruised any longer. It was just the faded remnants. Something will bite me again later. So I didn't count that and counted as less than 2 by 2. And the receptionist, with all 19 or 20 years old of her, went to Becca. That's her name, Becca, and uh, told on me. And next thing you know, I'm having to once again just get beat over the head and talk to corporate and write all these things out. And well, that's 2 now within a year. So they really started keeping an eye on me. And it's just very, very toxic. The work environment got super toxic. They hired. I'm not trying to knock them, but because guys can be bad about this too. But they hired a lot of really young girls, mostly Clemson college students or Tri County Tech college students, the technical college about 10 miles away from Clemson University. And gosh, all they did was just gossip about each other. Talk bad about each other. I tried to stay away from it. I stayed as far away from that as possible. I didn't want to be a part of that. I didn't want to be a part of talking about, teenage girl stuff. Or not teenage, but, young girl stuff. Because I had nothing to add to that. I don't have a problem with them talking about it, but I'm not complaining. Believe me, I'm glad I don't have anything to add to some of those conversations. But, it was tough. I felt lonely and isolated. I even told them that. And, there was no attempt to do anything about that. So, and like I said, our manager, who trusted me so much for 6 years suddenly just stopped trusting me. I don't know what happened. But, once again, she launched a big investigation. I know the restructuring when Grifols bought us out was a part of that, but once again, I got beat over the head for something very minor. Maybe it was more than 2x2, maybe it wasn't. Probably it was, but I mean, again, that's not something. They didn't donate out of that arm. They weren't going to stick through the bruise. I made them where they can only use their other arm, and to me, that's nothing major. And then by this point, though, I'd had it, so luckily I'd already started looking for other jobs, and I found another job. So I'll be working in urgent care starting in May, as on the medical staff. I won't be the doctor, of course, but I'll check them in, take their vitals, take in their chief complaint, order any tests that need to be taken off the get go, flu test and all that. I'm looking forward to it. I got to shadow somebody as part of my interview, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. So I'm very, very excited about the future. But at the same time, I had somebody who had who had poison oak and still had some bumps on his arm from it. So can't stick through those in the Plaza Center. And the SOP says if they have poison oak to defer until resolved. Well, the infection was gone. He didn't have poison oak anymore. There was no redness. He said a few leftover bumps that were not infected and did not have the poison ivy infection in it. So it resolved. But since the bumps were still there, that's the problem. We had non-medical people trying to interpret medical stuff. So instead of taking my medical opinion for it, they once again dinged me. And luckily, by this point, I got the job and I turned in my 2-week notice. Well, 2 days later, they pulled me in the office and said, "Yeah, we can't. They've decided to go and terminate your employment. You can't work out your notice." So after 7 years, I was fired, and when they fire you there, they have to escort you out of the building. Which, I mean, it wasn't like they just have to follow you while you pack what you need out of your locker and walk out the door. Which, I mean, it's insulting, And then the whole thing was a slap in the face. After 7 years for it to end like that, and have the manager that hired me back in late 2017, for my start date in early 2018, to be the one who just absolutely let it happen and has allowed this toxic work environment. I mean, it's taking a toll on me. It's taking a toll on my mental health, and my relationship was problems actually made work my safe haven until it wasn't. And that's where sports comes in, because usually I could watch sports and, it could be my safe haven. I could escape, but sports has just lost all escapability. And for me, that was a tough thing. I couldn't escape, issues with work and issues in my relationship. Staring down the barrel of divorce, which that sucks. But so that's kind of where I'm at. And like I said, I'm lucky. I've never had any ideology of any of my own life. A gentleman that I did work with for 5 years there, who got fired about this time last year, he took his life later that April, a little less than a year ago, and that hurts. That made me really kind of step back and take stock of myself. And luckily, I realized that's thus far never been an option. Hopefully, it never is. I've never viewed that as an option, and like I said, I'm very, very lucky there. And like I said, there's a lot to be lucky for, but sometimes it just gets to the point where you just feel overwhelmed and like you just need to crawl in a hole and curl up. And that's kind of where I've been. That's why I've not really made any videos. And even though the Super Bowl happened, even though the Indiana Fever have made a lot more moves, some of which look like they're blowing up in their face, and Brianna Turner, good lord. I'm gonna start making videos about some of this stuff now, but it's just I don't know. It's tough, and I just encourage everybody out there, take care of your mental health first. And if sports are causing issues with that, don't hesitate to tune out. It's especially when politics got involved. I hate politics, but I felt like I had to get involved because that became such a part of sports, and I felt like I had to take a side and think about it and spend way too much time worrying about it, and that hurt. And I should have been smart enough to turn it off then. So hopefully I can start talking about sports themselves more. They just seem less important now than they ever have for me. But I just want to let everybody know I'm okay, and like I said, don't hesitate to talk about it. We need to talk about it. Like I said, they talk about the stigma, and that's there, but I think there's also just that fear of, we don't know. Like I said, it's different for everybody. Maybe we need to talk about it. Maybe we don't need to talk about it. But I just think this not talking about stuff's not working. Um, my friend I told you about, he tried, he fought, he was on every medication you could think of, and it'd get him a little bit, and then he'd have to switch. And we talk about it. We talk about our respective mental health, and he'd tell me, that he was feeling suicidal, and but he got better, and I'd always tell him, I'm good. I'm glad to hear that. One thing I never told him was thank you for not ending your life, because I would have really, really hurt had that happened. Now, would that have made a difference? I don't know, but there's still that kind of regret there, and I don't know, because it's hurt a lot since we've lost him, and like I said, just and of course, what my job did to me. I mean, like I said, I was a willing participant. I messed up. I made some mistakes, but I just feel like the punishment didn't fit the crime. I felt like I was being singled out. I felt lonely and isolated there because, like I said, it was mostly younger women and a few younger guys, and a couple of older women. There's no guys there my age. Uh, I just felt really lonely and isolated there. Probably should have looked at getting out of there a lot earlier than I did. And I just encourage that to anybody out there. Do what you have to do. If it's making a YouTube channel where it's just you talking into a phone with no production values because it lets you get these thoughts out, do it. You know, I got 77 subscribers. That's about 60 more than I thought I'd have. To be honest with you, I never thought I'd have. I mean, that's a success to me, and I'm not gonna make any money off of that, but that's okay. I have a job, and I was able to get a new job. I'm just kind of waiting for that one to start right now, and probably had a chance to kind of unwind and think about things. And now I have this release, so I'm glad to have it, and I'm glad for you guys. I'm glad for everybody that's tuned in, and like I said, if you're going through something, talk to somebody. Reach out. Do what you have to do. Try not to. My advice would be not to ignore it, because, like I said, every time I've ignored it, things have gotten worse. Every time I tried to push it aside, things have gotten worse. I kind of did that for a while with this job, and it pushed me away. And I mean, like I said, I should have got out, because I mean, quite honestly, what they were doing was emotional abuse. And I remember Becca talking when one of our many browbeating meetings where she was telling me how much I sucked, basically, after all those years of having a good relationship with her. Um, she's like, we're worried about your mental state. Grifols does offer programs. She didn't go one specific or anything like that. Then the second time she mentioned that again, she said this is the name of the program. It was some sort of acronym. I didn't remember it. She didn't hand me a paper or nothing like that. So, I mean, what am I going to do? File a lawsuit? I don't want to file a lawsuit. Even though I'd probably have a case, to be honest with you, the way they treated me, the way they, kind of went out of their way to isolate me, I feel like, and never, like I said, just fostered this toxic environment. But I should have understood that a lot quicker, and I think I'll be quicker to understand in the future. Luckily, I'm going back to acute health care. People are having acute problems, and there's not really time to have any of that in situations like this. And I could tell already. The people working there were older, which, I mean, again, I'm not. I mean, there's a couple of younger ladies there that I just think the world of. They're so mature for their age, and like I said, there's some older people there that, quite honestly, were quite immature. So, but to anybody out there watching this, like I said, don't hesitate to speak out. Don't hesitate to reach out and get help. You're worth it. We're all worth it. Everybody's got somebody that cares about them, whether you realize it or not. Talk to somebody. Call on here, make a video, let it out. If nobody watches it, at least you got it out there. Um, life's fun. Life's a good thing. Life is a gift. It's tough sometimes. And I know for me, it's been a lot less tough for me than it has been for a lot of people. But, at the end of the day, my mind still tells me things aren't good sometimes. And it gets there. But, in addition to medication, you also have to work on your mind. It's like physical therapy for your brain. And I feel like I kind of got away from that. Now I'm kind of back to doing that, and I feel a lot better. So hopefully we'll be coming out with more videos. But I just want to put this out there. If you're struggling with mental health, and especially if at any point there's a part of you inside of you that says, I need to just end it all. I'd be better off gone. Everybody around me would be better off if I wasn't here. Or any of these other lies, and make no mistake about it, those are lies that your mind tells itself when it's not well. Um, like I said, reach out. It's not true. Um, there's a lot. You have a future. And you know what? Quite honestly, things will probably get worse before they get better. But after that, there is hope on the horizon. And to anybody reading this or listening to this, if you're going through it, shoot me a comment. I'll talk to you. I'll be happy to talk to you if you've made it this far. And like I said, just talk to somebody. Reach out. And, when people realize that you're at that point, they'll let you know how much you mean to them and how important you are to them, and how much their lives will suffer without you. And like I said, to anybody suffering right now, you're important. You're worth it. Like I said, reach out, and it's okay. A lot of us are in the same boat, and quite honestly, you might help us as much as we help you. So we're all in this together. We're all on this earth together. We're on this planet spinning around, and we're all in the same boat. If the boat sinks, we all sink. Um, and what might feel like sinking to you might not be really sinking, but like I said, it's all perspective. It's all about getting hold of your brain and doing whatever you can to make your mind work for you, not against you. For you to take control of your mind and not have your mind be in control. And it happens. It happens to all of us, and it's happening to you. Let it out. Please, let it out. Um, you're worth it. I'm very proud to, be here with you guys. To anybody who watches this, I'm very proud that you're watching this, and you're worth it. So reach out, and we're here for you. So thank you guys, and I'll talk to you later.